Yes. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activities. It is my pleasure to present Peggy Spear from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art, who is bringing us butterflies. I've been looking forward to this. And Peggy, we were talking yesterday about did we miss the migration? And you can probably tell us. It's all yours.
I absolutely cannot tell you that, but I did notice in like the last couple of weeks, just on our walks and out in our backyard, we've been seeing more butterflies. So I assumed they were either their last flame of glory before they died, or if they were moving on through. So yeah. I'm assuming it's happening now just based on my own observation, but I did not research that at all. Okay, so let me pull up my presentation. All right, y'all can see it?
Yes.
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 Let me make sure I can see all of you. Okay. All right. So we got a random smattering of butterflies in our collection.
Whoa.
Our first. Isn't this
In
so
100 years,
fun?
I'd not call that a butterfly.
Well, there is one.
There is butterflies. I see
Three,
one,
Yeah, I
two,
see them,
three,
but
four,
goodness.
five. At least 5 butterflies.
Yeah, this is the most artistic depiction of butterflies that in this group that we're looking at today. This is I feel like it's such a fun, just a fun scene. It's entitled Lions and Butterflies, which when I didn't see the title, I thought they were dinosaurs and butterflies.
Yeah.
I did too.
That's right.
Yeah. Morning,
Right.
Nancy.
Nothing makes it feel too liony to me. But what makes it feel dinosaurish? What did you guys feel was dinosaurish?
The shape of the head.
Shape of the head and the
Shape
neck.
of it.
And the squares, those cubes, kind of felt like scales, not necessarily fur or hair. Okay, so there's like almost nothing written about this particular artwork. And but it was done at the Tamarind the studio in LA, the lithography studio. When I was researching this artist, it's a woman, she's French. Her personal life was the real story that everyone kind of clings on to, because she was married, she never married, but had 2 children with. Any guesses?
Picasso.
Picasso, you nailed
Really?
it, Martha.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
you nailed it.
Whoa.
So her personal life was the more salacious story, which stinks that not a lot has been written about all of her artwork. But she was with Picasso from when she was 21 and he was 61, and they were together for about 10 years.
Oh,
and they
my.
had 2 kids. And then so they were not together when she created this artwork. But he did influence her in some of the Cubist art movement, the way that he was working at one point in time, which is very angular, almost like a crystallizing of patterns and re-blocking of a pattern. So you can kind of see it almost in what we were kind of saying, the scales of the lion, or these cubes behind the lions. And then even the butterfly wings, which is giving it almost a sense of motion, because it's mirroring itself in multiple ways. So that was, she didn't like working in as hard of lines as Picasso, which Picasso had a lot of very hard lines during his Cubist phase. So you can see there is some of that softer, rounder lines that she incorporates, which isn't necessarily characteristic of Picasso. But she was, by the time she was with Picasso and during her time with him, she was a well-known artist and in her own right, as a watercolorist, as a ceramicist. And she had, then as her relationship escalated with Picasso, her social status sort of eclipsed her artistic career, even though she created until the day she died. She was always in her studio and always making things. And I think almost every day she like made a point to do something creative, to paint, to do something like that. But she, interestingly enough, because, okay, so she was with Picasso, she ended up writing kind of like a tell-all about Picasso, which turned into like a whole thing, and kind of exposed him for sort of the person he was, which he enraged him. And then first he ignored it, and then it really angered him and the whole bit. So then she got married again, short-lived, and then she got married a third time to one of the creators of the polio vaccine in California. And so when she was in California, she was at the Tamarind Lithography Studio twice. When she was there in 61, and then in 69, or no, she went twice in 69. In May, this was one of the times when she made this. And then when she came back in October, that's when she met her then would-be husband, when she was in LA, staying at the studio through friends of friends. That's how she met him. And they ended up having another child.
Peggy, what was the big deal that she exposed about Picasso?
You know, I think just maybe he was kind of a difficult person to work with, to be around. It was not a favorable portrayal of Picasso.
Oh.
And so I think he even tried to sue her for libel and all this. So it was like a very nasty, but they were never married. So it wasn't a divorce, but it was a very nasty breakup. He ended up finding another muse, I think, and she was sort of left to herself.
Thank you.
Yeah, but she moved to the US after they separated, and then had 2 more marriages. So I was very interested in all of her. If you give her a Google, you can see her studio. She has a really cool apartment in New York, or I think she passed away in the last few years.
Yeah.
She had a really cool apartment in New York, and lived in Southern California. I think I want to say like La Jolla or Santa Barbara, somewhere in that realm. And she and her husband would spend months apart and then months together. And that was just kind of how their relationship worked. So,
Hey, Peggy,
Mhm.
I noticed it looks like there's some architecture, some columns. Looks like maybe an amphitheater here. Is that significant to this picture?
Not that I could find.
Okay.
I don't know if this was a reoccurring theme in her artwork. Typically, the artists that were coming to Tamarind were trying to translate artwork themes and styles that were characteristic of them to this medium.
Okay.
So we didn't have any other pieces in our collection that carried on that theme. So I don't know if outside of it, maybe, but not in our collection.
Okay.
Peggy, do you know what my first impression were of the lions?
Tell me, please.
Like hand puppets, until I
Hand
saw
puppets,
the legs on the first one.
Yes. Oh gosh, what a good call.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they all have that, like
They all
like
have
they were
that
just
leg,
stick
yeah.
glued onto a
Just the-
stock.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very imaginative. It feels very playful. These are not threatening lions.
No.
Well,
No.
but butterflies don't seem too afraid of them either.
Mm-mm. No, it's just a fun, kind of kooky little scene.
Mhm.
All right, so we see some butterflies and lions here mingling. Now I'm going to show you some of the more, probably what you were expecting more of butterflies. Elliott Porter. We've looked at so many different photographs throughout Elliott Porter's career, because we do have his archive. So we have all of his pictures, and he was, loved photographing nature, and nature without man interrupting what nature was doing. So these are very characteristic. But here is kind of like his bird pictures, where he would place his camera and he would wait and wait and wait and wait until something happened, and would just kind of stay parked at his camera for hours on end to see birds building nests, eggs hatching. And here we see a butterfly emerging from its cocoon.
Mm.
What do you think about this picture? do you have any reactions to it, or do you think it's pretty? Do you think it's ugly?
It shows the transformation from one phase in life to another.
It feels very, yeah, of course, there's that transition from cocoon to butterfly. We're seeing it. It feels very textural. You can see, you know, all of the little
Looks like hair.
hairs on the wings. You could almost feel like the ripple down here, how delicate it probably is. Even just the stick itself has a very distinct texture that he was able to capture.
I wonder what kind of background it was that he got it to be gray.
My hunch is that it was very hyper focused, that it's just so, because it was in nature. He did not have like a greenhouse or anything like that where some artists would grow their own butterflies or whatever. This was out in nature, so it could have, whatever is behind him is as it would be in nature. And that very, very sharp focus puts everything behind it a blur. It wouldn't even recognize what it was. So here's one of his butterflies. And here's another, it's a moth, but.
Yeah, it's a Luna moth. My favorite.
It's beautiful.
Tell us about the moth, Don. What is it? Why is that your favorite, Don?
Well, I did when I was like, I don't know, it was maybe fourth grade. I did a project. I had to draw a Luna moth, and I'm sure I put something about some information about it, but it seemed like it had some. My recollection is it had some interesting characteristics. So, but I don't remember.
They look, from this picture, they look pretty long.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen a Luna moth in the wild?
No.
Nope.
Not recognized.
And I want to say when their wings are closed, they look very ho-hum. It's when they're, I mean, like if their wings are down, they are very, not nearly as colorful as it looks right here. We used this photograph a couple of years ago for story time with our itty bitties, and we read one of Eric Carlisle's book.
Carl.
And so he has a book about a Luna moth, and there's just so fun, and they're beautiful.
So Luna moths are part of a group called the giant silk moths. Has lime green colored wings. Their lifespan is about 1 week after they get out or come out of their chrysalis.
Oh, really?
Wow, that's not long.
Live it up, baby.
I was looking at I looked at some of the lifespans of the mourning cloak, which these butterflies live all over North America. So you have probably seen these particular butterflies in your backyard. And these live for about 3+ months.
Wow.
They live for what to me feels like a very long time for a butterfly. And they prefer tree sap from oaks and trees like that. Oh no, I'm reading right here. I read my notes wrong. They're about 3 inches long, but they live 10 to 11 months. So they are ones that migrate.
Okay.
They migrate. So those might be some of the ones you're seeing on their roam to wherever they go next.
I've
We're
never
just basically looking for host plants and trees.
I don't recall ever seeing hair on a butterfly.
No.
Well, it's part of the process. Its wings are not fully extended yet, and so
is that what makes the
hair,
caterpillar fuzzy? Is that what's like fuzzy on the caterpillar before it becomes?
I don't know, but I think the fuzziness clears away after it's fully. The wings have to spread out, and they have resources in their bodies to do that.
Kind of like an afterbirth that goes away.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or like the like cottage cheese cheddar that comes out on a baby that's there, and then it absorbs right into their skin.
Yes.
So these are, you know, we've seen him before with Porter. He is a naturalist. He loves photographing everything in nature. So he has tons of butterflies and insects that he has photographed throughout his career. And the printing process he uses is very elaborate. You're soaking it in multiple different colors to really get that saturation, I think is the word Martha's used in the past, that very heavy saturated photograph, in which makes the colors seem almost hyper real.
Mhm.
All right.
Any chance you're doing another grouping of Elliott Porter anytime soon?
Not on the docket, no, but as long as John Moorbach, the curator of photography, the senior curator, is here, I know another one's coming down the pipe. We just don't know when it's coming yet.
Okay. If
This
I'm
is a fun
alive,
one.
let me know.
Yeah, you will be the first.
Okay.
So this is a fun one. We don't actually see the butterfly, but what do we see?
The
The
butterfly net.
Somebody who
Butterfly net.
might catch them.
Okay, so this is one of those words that is so hard for me to say. Lepidopterist.
You did it
Yeah,
well.
What does that mean?
It's the collector or researcher of moths and butterflies.
Ah,
And
okay.
so does the name, okay, so it looks like it's Vladimir, but that's not how he said his name. It's, it rhymes with Redeemer, so Vladimir.
Redeemer.
Vladimir. Nabokov, which he
Nabokov.
talked about at different points in his life, how certain nationalities really butchered his name. He was a novelist, but I did not realize that he wrote this particular book, and maybe y'all know, I just didn't put two and two together. Lolita. Did y'all ever read Lolita?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
That was a hot book.
Whew,
Yeah.
It was a hot book.
He
And so he was a very well-known novelist, and many people think he was robbed for not winning the Nobel Prize in Literature. So he was a very well-known name. When an article came out in Life magazine in 1958, or it came out in 1964, but these pictures were taken in 1958 about this, this novelist, and how he had always wished if he could do another career, it would be a curator of a butterfly and moth collection at a great museum.
Oh,
And so Carl Maidans, who was one of the original photographers at Life magazine and then spent most of his career at Life, took photographs of him and his wife, who was his editor and publisher. He followed him around his property in New York and took pictures of him showing his butterflies, catching his butterflies, on the hunt for butterflies. So it was a article that was well received in the day.
And when I see this picture, so he's a butterfly collector. I'm thinking about walls full of shadow boxes with pinned butterflies and moths hanging on
Yep.
the wall.
You're exactly right. In some of the other photographs in the article, we don't have them in our collection, but in the article, because he would do exactly that. He would display them, he would pin them. He's putting butterflies in envelopes, in like parchment envelopes,
Oh,
that
Ooh.
you can tell that later he will be doing something with it to study them, to display them, to just kind of examine them.
okay.
I really, the shadow intrigues me too in this picture.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
The
Mhm.
reflection,
And so-
the shadows.
Yes.
Oh, see, I thought that one thing might have been a reflection in a puddle right there in
Is
the
it-
middle.
Is it water?
Yeah, it looks like
It
it.
has to be.
Yeah.
This particular photographer was very interested in the journalistic. While they're beautiful pictures, he was a journalist. And so he was really trying to capture the essence of the moment versus creating an artistic aura, so to speak. And so we've seen pictures of his before, like when we were doing the strike, when we talked about Labor Day weekend, and there was a woman on a ladder on Wall Street and the men were all around her. He took that
Yes.
photograph for
Okay.
Life magazine. So he was telling a story, but everything he's capturing it, and he's not posing these pictures.
See, what I'm thinking, I might not mind in a life where I got paid to capture butterflies and moths, collect them.
I know that was a life he wished he had. If writing didn't work out for him, he wished
That's
that
right.
was the path that he took.
That's right.
And to be able to do it with your wife or your best friend or somebody,
Yeah.
I mean, like that sounds so fun.
To be
And so this was something he did as long as he was alive. This was something that was an interest for him. So I feel like this is just I feel maybe you remember as a child doing this in your backyard, collecting butterflies, or if you have an interest now, even going to like estate sales or auctions, you always see, you know, butterflies pinned. That's always something that looks beautiful to display, even if you're not a researcher. So this is him in the action. All right, we've got two more butterflies or butterfly images. John James Audubon. We've all heard of John James, right?
Mhm.
He is the bird guy, but he also painted other subjects such as insects. You can see here a butterfly that's meeting its demise. And he did quadrupeds too in North America, but his birds are really what has put him on the map. But he, just the same way that he was studying these birds and anatomically depicting them accurately, he was doing the same thing for the butterflies and other insects he would depict on these artworks as well.
It almost looks like a skeleton.
Doesn't it?
The teeth of a skeleton.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're getting ready for Halloween early, huh, Martha?
I've seen the foreshadowing of October.
Oh yeah,
that's
yeah.
right.
You're just getting in that mindset.
Mhm.
I'm dropping little Easter eggs up until that point.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you can his insect pictures are a little harder to find, but he incorporates them in a lot of his bird.
I hope he doesn't always show them as bird food.
Yeah,
I
bird
hope
food,
so
right.
too.
And then, so Audubon was, of course, doing his thing in the early 1800s, and he very heavily influenced two Fort Worthians, Stewart and Scott Gentling. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with.
Yes, we've talked about them.
Yes. So the Gentlings, we just last week, Thursday, we opened an exhibition featuring Stewart and Scott Gentling's artwork. They were twin brothers, but and best friends, lived together their entire life, but 2 years for when Scott, the other brother, went to art school in Philadelphia. Other than that, they never married. They lived together their entire lives. And they were considered themselves gentlemen of the art, naturalists. And this is earlier in their career that Stewart, one of the brothers, created, or hand drew and then painted moths that he had found in nature. They tried to emulate they did a whole bird series just like Audubon, that they tried to emulate sort of the naturalist life of an artist that Audubon did. They were not successful in that, but they were very very good in their own right, just in a different way. And so in this exhibition that just opened there, you can see some of their earlier, when they were just starting to learn how to use opaque watercolor and drawing and things like that. They were both really good draftsmen. See you, Steve.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow,
Steve.
guys.
Bye.
Bye, Steve.
Peggy, I know they had something to do with the artwork in the bass.
Mm-hmm.
Did they paint all of the bass or just the ceiling?
I think just the ceiling, but they had plans and the domes, but they had plans on what the bass hall needed to look like and that was not asked of them. And so like, for example, they really hated the angels with the trumpets on the front. They said, no, we think we're the West. This is too classical. We should have horses jumping out of the architecture. Well, of course, the Bass family said, no, we think you should put on the other things, and that's where we leave you. And so those are the same. That's the same set of brothers.
So again, what did they paint inside the
domes? If you
the
look
dome?
at those,
Okay.
yeah.
And if you look in the dome, there are two birds, and that depicts the two brothers.
Oh, how interesting.
I'm surprised you didn't know that, Peggy.
You know what? We just got the tour this morning with the curator, and it's only 30 minutes long, so I haven't beefed up on this exhibition. But
Okay.
a cool perk is that right when an exhibition opens, the curator will walk with staff for about 30 to 45 minutes, depending, and go through the show. So the staff gets kind of a private preview before the public.
Oh,
wow.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Getling, there's, I think, over 170 artworks in this exhibition. It's massive. And some artworks Scott worked on exclusively, some Stewart worked on exclusively. Scott was more of the natural. Stewart took a little more practice and warming up to becoming as good as he was. Scott went to the Philadelphia School of Art and was really good etcher and did it for about a year, and then walked away from etching and got really into watercolor. They were both good draftsmen. And so what Scott was learning, he would then teach his brother. So then Stewart eventually got, better and better as his brother helped him improve some of those skills.
So these aren't pinned butterflies. These are watercolors of pinned butterflies.
That's right.
Exactly. And Stewart also learned how to taxidermy birds when they were in their big Audubon phase. And so they were Texan through and through. And so they have pheasants and other birds that are often hunted in Fort Worth or, in the area in North Texas. And so these butterflies are ones that he had found, I believe, in Texas, but if not, he was copying something from another book. It's not as though they were going to South America to study the butterflies. Some artists did. These are not those artists.
They didn't want to leave home.
No, they are very interesting characters, to say the least, that you kind of learn as that unfolds in the exhibition. But they were each other's best friends. And so it's very interesting, the different phases of artwork. And we'll look at them. I think Familiar Faces is one of the themes we're doing in October. And they were, got to pay the bill somehow. So they were really well-known portraitists in the area. And then some of their artwork hung in the White House when Bush was in office. They were commissioned to do a portrait of Bush. So they are a very well-known Texan artist, but the things they were doing were not what was in vogue at the time. So they knew that, and they had no problem with it. But that's kind of why they're not in the canon, as they say, of art history, the same way that other artists were, because they weren't producing the trends of the time.
Are they still alive?
No, Stewart died in 2006, and his brother died maybe 6 or 8 years later.
Okay.
So no.
Okay.
But all over Fort Worth, all over Texas, many people collect their artwork, and they actually had an estate sale when they passed away. So like people on staff went and have a pheasant of theirs and things like that. So
Wow.
kind of funny, but yeah, they are Fort Worth staples.
Well, I bet that was some sale.
I know. I wish I knew about it. It happened since I've worked here. I don't know what. I was disappointed to learn after the fact. But anyway. All right, friends. Well, those are our beautiful butterflies for the day. Next week, we're back and we're doing the fences, the topic I couldn't do a couple weeks ago because I bring one of the kids to the pediatrician. But we are back with fences next week.
Are your little ones doing okay, Peggy?
Yeah, it's just every week it's like strep throat's going around school, pink eye is going around school. So it's like,
Yeah.
which illness are we going to get this week? So we're all fine. Just
Okay.
pediatrician like knows us by first, and we have like a cot there now. We're like, hey, we're back.
A plaque. Yes.
Yeah, seriously.
Mhm.
All right, friends. Well, it was all good seeing you, and I will see you next week.
Thank you.
Have a happy week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.